The U.S.-led war with Iran has now entered its third week, and our government has already burned through literal years' worth of munitions. That's according to reporting by the Financial Times, which cites 3 people familiar with the matter. Adding that this is fueling concerns about the rising cost of the conflict and America's ability to replenish its stockpiles. Remember, Pentagon officials told lawmakers that the first week of the Iran war cost more than $11.3 billion. In fact, some GOP lawmakers have heard estimates that the Pentagon is spending as much as $2 billion per day. That's according to Politico. But burning through munitions or taxpayer dollars doesn't seem like a huge concern for the Trump administration. From the beginning, they've told us that all bets are off. Here is how Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has put it.
No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. Death and destruction from the sky all day long. We will keep pressing. We will keep pushing, keep advancing, no quarter, no mercy for our enemies.
Joining us now to unpack this all is retired Major General Randy Manner of the United States Army. He is also former acting vice chief of the National Guard Bureau. Major Manner, let's start with this rhetoric from Hegseth. This is a guy who publicly defended war criminals before. What do you hear when he says no rules of engagement?
First of all, thank you for taking the time, as you did a few minutes ago, to recognize the fallen. Every single military member who is killed or wounded in action, their lives actually impact dozens of their families. So thank you for taking that time. Secondly, I want to be very clear. The words that the Secretary of Defense said are absolutely the words of potential war criminals. Those are the kind of words in terms of no rules of engagement, the idea that no quarter be given. Putting it bluntly, the president cannot protect this Secretary of Defense, even if he does give him a pardon for any crimes. The International War Tribunal will potentially consider this Secretary of Defense for war crimes against humanity.
General, as somebody who has served in the military, I want you to kind of fact check for our viewers this constant claim that we hear from people like Pete Hegseth that we have unlimited munitions, that we have unlimited firepower, that this war could last as long as we want it to last. We hear that also from the president. There is this kind of arrogance to dismiss the fact that resources are being spent, not just financial resources, but human resources as well. And the fact that we're taking pieces away from South Korea to protect our allies and assets in South Korea and bringing them to the Middle East to protect countries there.
It is absolutely political propaganda and lies that we have unlimited resources. Think about it. That implies that we have as many missiles, unlimited, infinity. Not true. Absolutely not true. It also disturbs me greatly when the president himself says, we're going to hit them again just for fun. It sounds like a bunch of frat boys talking about something. Death and destruction and the harmful impact on human beings is not something fun. And it's very disturbing whenever we have our senior leaders discussing it in terms like this. The criteria for what the purpose of the war is keeps changing, and therefore the American people do not know, and the world does not know, when will all this nightmare end, such that we will not see, for example, gas prices exceed $4 a gallon, which will happen in the next month, given what is happening.
General, earlier this evening, we had a former Pentagon official whose entire career and work there had been dedicated to reducing, minimizing the possibility of civilian casualties. And we talked to him about what happened at the Iranian girls' school. Do you believe, given the direction the evidence is heading, the finding from this probe that the U.S. is in fact responsible, that accountability, responsibility goes all the way up to Hegseth?
I do not know the facts behind the situation. This Secretary of Defense reduced personally the number of people available to investigate these kinds of potential issues from 200 to only 40. That is indicative of the fact that it falls into his umbrella of we're not going to have any idiotic rules or whatever. Those rules are meant to be able to ensure that we only hit military targets, that we minimize or recognize whenever civilian targets are hit. We improve our rules. We apologize. We in many cases have provided financial restitution to those families that were impacted. I don't know where this is going to go. I only know that this administration is absolving itself of all responsibility of the traditional rules of war and engagement under the Geneva Convention.
To that point, General, I chuckled a little when you mentioned frat bros with relation to the Secretary of Defense. It does seem like we are being governed by the manosphere of the manosphere and for the manosphere. But I wonder if this incident, coupled with what we saw last year with the Venezuelan boat strikes, might form the foundation for genuine accountability, whether in an international tribunal or even here in the United States among the courts martial.
Within the United States, with this present administration, they've already demonstrated they're unlikely to be able to hold people accountable for the actions or even the mistakes that occur in the military. They continue to eliminate JAGs. They continue to intimidate them. They ignore the legal advice of counsel within the Department of Defense. And I have talked to many retired and active JAGs. And quite frankly, this administration is basically says we are above the law, or they are above the law. This is extremely unfortunate. I think it's indicative of not only where we are, but where we are going in the next 2 years. I think this is also something that puts our own servicemen in harm's way and also opens up the door for possible persecution under the international law, which, of course, the president has no ability to do anything about that whatsoever.
General, we've been talking about how we are running down our munitions. We have pulled THAAD batteries out of Korea and the Pacific. Could you talk a little bit about what this war may do to our military readiness elsewhere in the world?
It is absolutely reducing our ability to be able to defend, for example, Taiwan, for our ability to defend the United States. Every missile that we fire over there is one less that we have to actually use for legitimate defense of our country. Again, we only produce a few missiles per month of some of these varieties, and we are firing them constantly. So while there are stockpiles, absolutely, and I want to make sure to reassure anybody who is listening to this broadcast, the United States remains the most powerful country on the planet. However, we do not have unlimited resources, and we should be using them wisely, let alone, of course, putting the lives of our American servicemen in harm's way.
But on that, what do you think realistically our allies are going to do or recalculate now that they've been shown that, A, they won't be approached and be given much of a say before we launch a war, and then once we're in it, we'll actually take things from them that we had offered to them as part of their protection in previous agreements. If we're willing to snatch it away from them like that, are they going to have to look to others in the future? Are they going to rely on us going forward?
The only ally right now that can rely on U.S. support is Israel. Whatever the prime minister is telling the president to do, that's what's happening. In contrast, all of our European allies, all of our allies in the Middle East are feeling, quite frankly, abandoned because they were not notified, they were not included in this. In contrast to the two presidents, Bush, they both worked for months, very quickly, very strongly, to be able to convince and educate the American people about why we were going to war. And secondly, of course, worked very extensively with our allies to develop a united front so that it was not just the United States, it was literally dozens of nations together to be able to do what we needed to do. In this case, the president is acting unilaterally, and we are losing friends every single day.
General Randy Manner, thank you so much for joining us again. Good to see you.
Thank you.